All right, we are live Monday morning. Fantasy football takeaways, week 12 of fantasy football. Of course, lot of things happened this week. We got to probably go over injuries. I'm just going to start going over them before people start to file in here, and anybody that watches this back and kind of get the most recent update on injuries, because I do think that was probably the biggest takeaway of the week. It started on Thursday, of course, with Deandre Swift. Deandre Swift looked to be in a lot of pain, suffering a shoulder injury on the first Thursday Thanksgiving game that we saw. What it's being called basically a grade 1 AC joint sprain by fantasy doctors, because they did say he was only day-to-day. Return to play, according to those people, is about 1 to 2 weeks, but apparently he could actually play through it. So he has a decent chance of playing this week. Although I would probably pick up Jamal Williams if he's on your waiver wire. Probably a good stash in case anything happens again to Swift. But good news for him. Looks like he'll be all right. Has a chance to even play this week, but might be out a game or two. But not too concerning there. Darren Waller, of course, on Thursday also suffered an injury, strained an IT band in his knee. 1 to 3 weeks return to play, according to PFF's doctor. But he does have 10 days before his next game because he played on Thursday. So there is a chance he could play this week, but I might expect him to be out 1 game, maybe 2 for Darren Waller. So not too concerning there. But then we got into the 1 p.m. games and the Sunday football, where we did see quite a bit of injuries. Christian McCaffrey was limited mostly in this game, has a bye week this week, but he was limited with an ankle injury, was seen in a walking boot during the second half. So hopefully he's okay. He does have a bye week to recover from whatever he did if he, had like a low ankle sprain or something like that. But the injuries kind of keep piling up for Christian McCaffrey, unfortunately, but I think he should be okay and probably won't miss any time, hopefully, based on what I've seen. Dalvin Cook, on the other hand, this looks to be a little bit more serious. Probably the most serious of all the injuries that we saw. He suffered a dislocated shoulder, according to reports, but apparently he's been dealing with a torn labrum in one of his shoulders, and he may have tore the other one. So this guy can't play through 2 torn labrums, I would imagine. And Dr. Edwin Porras, who we had on the channel throughout the offseason and last year as well, did talk about the fact that Dalvin Cook has a history of separating his shoulders, dislocating his shoulders. And that's why he was a high injury risk player, not because of like soft tissue stuff or anything lower body. He was mainly concerned with the shoulder stuff because he had a history of it. And he said at the time, basically, that if he dislocates his shoulder again, then he might need surgery, and that could put him out for the year, right? So we're kind of awaiting results. And if anybody sees them on Twitter or whatever, just let me know in the comment section. But Dalvin Cook, we're definitely awaiting some results right now. Obviously, if Alexander Madison is on your waiver wire, he is worth every ounce of whatever fab budget that you have left. Drop it all on Alexander Madison, because he's clearly going to walk into a big workload if Dalvin Cook misses any time. I highly doubt that Dalvin Cook misses no time with this. I think he's going to at least miss a couple weeks, probably the rest of the season, based on the things that I've seen on Twitter and from fantasy doctors. Of course, in that same game, we also did have another superstar fantasy player go down with Deebo Samuel suffering apparently a groin injury, what's being called basically. And if you'll recall, Deebo Samuel was actually dealing with a groin injury in the summer before the start of the season, during the preseason, and things of that nature. Pro Football Focus's doc expects him to miss a few weeks with this injury. So again, Deebo Samuel, hopefully if you have Deebo Samuel, you're probably in good shape, because he was a great value in drafts, and you're probably have a pretty good record right now, but you might be without Deebo Samuel for a week, 2, 3 weeks. I don't really know the specific timeline, but groin injuries apparently can be pretty finicky for wide receivers. So those were the major injuries. And of course, we did have Miles Sanders, who re-aggravated his ankle injury, basically taped it up, returned to the field, but didn't see any work once he left the game. Eagles have a bye in week 14, so Sanders may be out this week, get the week 14 bye to rest up, and then be back ready to go after that. Dan Arnold out probably for the rest of the season, 4 to 6 weeks, according to Ian Rappaport. So I would say stock up on a guy like Marvin Jones, who has been, his target share has actually been dented by Dan Arnold's addition. Once he came in, Marvin Jones was seeing a little bit less targets than usual. So that's basically the kind of injury roundup that we've seen. A lot of injuries to talk about. That's why I figured it was probably the biggest takeaway, and I just do it off the top. I'll get into some of you guys now. Spicy Hot, yo, what's up, Spicy Hot? Elijah Mitchell. Yeah, Elijah Mitchell, man, that guy went bonkers again. And it's so wild to me, and I tweeted this out during the game, but it's kind of wild to me that my biggest hit of, Dynasty and the offseason was Elijah Mitchell, and my biggest miss was Deebo Samuel, and they're on the same team. So that I kind of found pretty funny because I was so right about Elijah Mitchell and the whole premise behind liking Elijah Mitchell. But by the same token, I was so wrong about Deebo Samuel. So kind of, you're batting 50-50 at some points. I hate having Miles Sanders. Yeah, Miles Sanders, man, the guy just can't stay healthy. Like, I don't want to call the guy injury prone, but it seems like every time he's coming back from an injury, he suffers some setbacks or, ankle injuries, soft tissue stuff. Just brutal. I wouldn't enjoy having Miles Sanders as well, but thankfully I don't have him literally anywhere. Like, I'm in 7 leagues and I don't have Miles Sanders in one of them. So kind of dodged a bullet there, but yeah, it's definitely probably not very fun having Miles Sanders right now. Trade David Montgomery for Keenan or Jamar Chase. Yeah, if you need a wide receiver, I don't mind making that move. I would take both of those guys over David Montgomery, assuming you have running back depth able to do that. I love hot sauce. Me too. What do you think of Javonte? Still splitting touches, but had a nice night. Okay, so that kind of leads me into another takeaway that I have. Javonte Williams, obviously the post-bye rookie bump. I kind of hyped it up all week. A lot of people have been talking about it. Happy Javonte Williams week was spreading all throughout the old Bird app this week, but we did see a slight bump in his usage. So it was encouraging to see. It almost looked like they flip-flopped roles. So typically what we saw all season was Gordon was like a 55, maybe 60% opportunity share running back. Javonte Williams was more in that 45, 40% range. And we kind of saw a flip in the usage of those guys. We saw Javonte Williams outsnap Melvin Gordon 58% to 42%. He ran 55% of the Broncos routes to Gordon's 26%, but they tied in opportunities 18-18, with Javonte Williams getting 4 targets, Melvin Gordon only getting 1 target, but Melvin Gordon having 17 carries, I believe. Javonte Williams only having 14 carries. So again, definitely great to see that Javonte Williams did see a slight uptick. We'll have to see if that continues going forward. But I think going forward, Javonte Williams is the preferred starter of the Broncos backfield. If you do have both guys on your roster, I probably, wouldn't advise you do something like that. But if you do have both guys on your roster, I would be starting Javonte over Melvin Gordon at this point, because he is getting what looks to be the pass catching work, running a lot more routes. And that's been a trend in the past couple weeks where he's been running more routes and getting more targets. So yeah, if I have to start one of these guys going forward, it will be Javonte Williams, but it's not the, RB1 that could have happened, right? Because there was a world where Javonte Williams comes out of the bye week and they throw him out there 75% of the snaps and they give him, 22 opportunities to Melvin Gordon's 12 or something like that. And that would have been having this Twitter Spaces very, very excited. But nonetheless, great game out of Javonte Williams. Kid looks phenomenal. Every time they get the ball in his hands, he looks great. So great news for him and those of us that have him, including myself. Christian, okay, how can you say that? So again, Christian McCaffrey, the injury doesn't sound serious. He was spotted in a walking boot and they have a week. They have a bye this week. So again, it's not ideal that he's getting re-injured again. I'm sure whoever has Christian McCaffrey is very frustrated with him right now, but they have a bye week. So it's not like you can use him this week anyway. So hopefully he's able to just keep, resting up and getting back to full speed. 10-2, back alone in first place in the standings, feeling good this Monday. I don't know if you're talking about our Listener Dynasty League or if you're talking about your own league that you're in, but I'm pretty sure you're doing pretty well in our Listener Dynasty League as well. So you might be 10-2 in that one. I question your league in if Madison is on the waiver wire. I would say the only way Madison's probably on the waiver wire for a lot of people is if they play in an 8 or a 10 team league. I would say in most 12 team leagues, Madison's got to be rostered right now. And speaking of, let me know what you guys want me to talk about in tomorrow's video, because I'm not going to do a trade targets video because many people have had their trade deadlines already. So what I'm going to do is drop the rest of season rankings basically in the description of the video tomorrow. So if you guys do still have your trade deadlines ahead, you haven't had it yet, you can check out the rest of season rankings in the description of tomorrow's video and get some trade target ideas by that, basically just seeing who's above who or whatever. But let me know what you guys want to see. I was thinking I'd do something like stashes for the playoffs, whether it's, backup running backs or defenses, quarterbacks, whatever the case is. Let me know what you guys want to see on Tuesdays going forward, because like I said, most people have had their trade deadlines already. I don't want to make trade videos because I've already had all my trade deadlines too. So they're not, things I'm taking action on personally anyway. So let me know what you guys want to see in tomorrow's video going forward for the rest of the year. I just won my 5th in a row and my opponent had Christian with 3.3 points. Yeah, that definitely helps. Players have been massively underperforming. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got locked up. I wouldn't say they got locked up. It was just kind of game flow that Leonard Fournette and Gronkowski were kind of carrying the load. And speaking of, that kind of leads me into my next takeaway, is that Rob Gronkowski was definitely, I would say, the single biggest value in all of drafts for the tight end position. And the thing that I want to point out about Rob Gronkowski is that he has been the elite tight end that we saw in years past with the Patriots this year. 81% of the routes this week, which basically marks 3 full healthy games for Rob Gronkowski, because in a couple weeks he's either left early or he's being ramped up from a multi-week injury, similar to what we saw last week against the Giants. But in the 3 healthy games that he's played this year, week 1, week 2, and week 12, he's been the tight end 1 or tight end 2 in all 3 of those games. So this is a guy that is extremely, extremely valuable, because the volume that he gets, he doesn't get the typical Austin Hooper targets, right? Like the 4th or the 3rd and 4 get the first down targets. He doesn't get those. What he gets are downfield looks, 20 plus yard completions, and also plenty of work inside the red zone. So with Rob Gronkowski, I think he's a guy that is absolutely going to win some people some leagues if they picked him up. Maybe he was available on people's waiver wires after he got injured, or if they traded for him while he was injured, or if they just drafted him and held on to him. I think he's really going to win some people some leagues. And I'm happy to report that he was one of my highest owned tight ends in underdog drafts. So definitely excited about that. Congrats, Nathan, who you like tonight. Who's even playing tonight? I can't even. Oh, Washington and Seattle. I would say like Seattle definitely could use a bounce back spot. They have, they've been kind of quiet offensively the past couple of weeks since Russell Wilson's come back, and the Washington defense is nothing really to be scared of, especially with Chase Young no longer on that starting team right now. So I would say that the Seahawks could, put a number on the Washington football team this week, but you never know. Primetime games, it's always, up and down, hit or miss. Could see a big Taylor Heineke performance out of nowhere. The Washington football team is getting a lot healthier recently, with Antonio Gibson now looking like he's healthy. Logan Thomas is expected to make his return this week since, week 2, week 3, whenever he sustained his hamstring injury. And same goes for Curtis Samuel, who I don't even think has played a game this year, if I'm being honest. I can't think off the top of my head if he's even played. So they're getting a lot healthier, so their offense might be a little bit more formidable this week, but I still like the Seahawks in this one to probably put up some numbers, and I might make a showdown lineup on the live stream later tonight. How far are you sliding Godwin in your rest of season rankings? Honestly, not that far. Godwin, again, with Godwin, Mike Evans, like these guys are going to have down games just simply by the fact that there's a lot of weapons in their offenses, but you want those big games. Like you mean saying, how far am I sliding down Chris Godwin? 2 weeks ago, he had a huge game against the Giants. So I'm not sliding him down at all, really. He's been a top 15, top 20 wide receiver for me this whole time. That's where he's going to continue to be. He's not a top 5, top 6 wide receiver because he's simply not consistent enough. But realistically, there's only like 5 or 6 receivers in the league that are so consistent to the point that you're going to just say they're immediate top 5 receivers. And it's guys like Cooper Kupp, guys like Devontae Adams. You could even probably lump a guy like Deebo Samuel into that. You could lump in, Stefan Diggs even or something like that. But Godwin obviously isn't in that tier. He's more so back with the DeAndre Hopkinses this year and the AJ Browns and guys that are a little bit more inconsistent, but you got to continue rolling them out into your starting lineup because those big weeks will definitely hurt you if they're on your bench. How about Mike Williams? Mike Williams is just fine. Again, he didn't have a big game this week, but he's a guy, again, another one of those wide receiver 3 boomer bust guys, Tyler Lockett, Chase Claypool types, where you throw him into your lineup as a flex option, but you can sit him if you have great options, obviously. Javonte looks amazing. Give him all the work. Absolutely. Leonard Fournette. All I have to say, yeah, Leonard Fournette, man. I unfortunately, quick like DFS recap. I didn't do very well on DFS this week in terms of the main slate. So I play a lot of main slate DFS because that's the articles that I write for Draft Sharks, and I torched a lot of lineups with Tom Brady stacks and a couple other lineup decisions that didn't go my way. But what I actually did was I took down, and you guys can see this right now, I literally took down the hard count. It was only like, there's only 117 entries. Yeah, you can see there's only 117 entries, but I came in first in this contest. And what this was the afternoon slate only. So I saw all my lineups early in the slate were just torching, right? I had Tom Brady stacks. I had what was the other lineup I had? I had a lineup with like Ben Roethlisberger or something like that. So they were throwing. They were terrible. So what I did was I pivoted away basically. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to enter a afternoon only slate, a 3-game slate, because I did pretty well on Thanksgiving. I was like, hey, maybe I'll do well on an afternoon only slate. And as you guys can see, I did quite well. I came in first place. That last Justin Herbert to Jared Cook touchdown was the nail in the coffin. As you guys can see, I came in first by quite a decent margin as well. And if I had entered this lineup into some bigger contests, the winnings probably would have been a lot more than $300. But definitely, a successful day of DFS after a very unsuccessful 1 p.m. slate of DFS. For me, I only min cashed in one lineup of 4 or 5 in the 1 p.m. main slate or whatever. So I was just like, screw it, I'm gonna try and win this back on the 4 p.m. slate, and it definitely worked out for me. I have Russell Wilson in my super flex, so I hope he gets his shit together versus a weak banged up Washington defense. Yeah, if Russell Wilson can't do it in this week, I'm going to be pretty worried about him going forward. Would you start Alexander Madison over Ezekiel Elliott? I mean, Ezekiel Elliott is also, I didn't even talk about him with the injuries at the beginning of the video, but he is dealing with a lot of injuries as well. We heard reports that they might like shut him down or something like that, or, just keep him on ice and kind of use him sparingly. I don't really know what they're going to do with Ezekiel Elliott, but if we're going to continue to hear reports like that and Dalvin Cook's going to be out, then yes, I would start Alexander Madison over Ezekiel Elliott. But if you're asking for this week, would I start, are you setting your lineups right now? Would I start Ezekiel Elliott or Alexander Madison? I need to know a lot more information before I can make that decision. So we'll have to monitor that throughout the week. Hey Bush, bro, Hurts and Goddard killed me. Yeah, they killed me. That was actually the lineup, now that I think about it, that I torched at 1 p.m. was a Jalen Hurts lineup with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Brutal. I need Gibson to score 14 points today. Sadly, I benched Dylan for him too. Yeah, did Dylan have a huge game? I don't even remember how well he did, but I think Gibson can score 14 points. We know, obviously, Gibson's primary value is going to come either out of big plays or touchdowns. And this Seattle defense isn't the greatest in the world. They're allowing like the third most adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And if Washington, like I said, is getting healthier on offense and they're able to move the ball more consistently, with Terry not being the only weapon that they have, with Samuel, with Thomas, with McKissick and Gibson all healthy for like the first time this year, then there should be more scoring opportunities for Gibson. So I actually kind of like this game to potentially be sneaky high scoring. I think that the Seahawks should be able to put up points on the other side of things, but hopefully the Washington team can keep up. Wanted to move Chubb last week, but couldn't find a good deal. Definitely can't move him now. Browns get 4 INTs, but did nothing with them. Yeah, that game was such a dumpster fire. Like, I was only half paying attention to it because it was just so boring. There was nothing to watch. It was just like a huge defensive battle, which, is fun sometimes. But when it's a Sunday night game, regular season game, I kind of want to see some offense, especially with my showdown lineup. And I was annoyed too, because the showdown lineup I played last night on Sunday Night Football, I had Jarvis Landry in the captain slot, and I still didn't min cash because the rest of my lineup was just so garbage. So I literally had the highest scoring player in the MVP slot, which is definitely what you want to do on a showdown slate. But I still wasn't able to make any money doing that because the rest of my lineup was terrible. Goddard killed me too. Would have won big if he at least got the ball. Yeah, it's so weird. His usage is so great, but the targets just haven't been there. Moved Henry and Barkley separate dynasties to grab Williams and Pollard and picks. LOL winning. I mean, I guess I got to know what picks you got. I'm assuming you mean Javonte Williams, but yeah, if you can move Derrick Henry and for Javonte Williams and some picks, I'm definitely okay with a move like that. Barkley, I value Barkley still pretty highly. I know a lot of people are down on Barkley right now just because he's been dealing with injuries similar to a guy like Christian McCaffrey, but I'm still high on the ability of Saquon Barkley. Do you think Stefan Diggs is a sell high? The yardage totals aren't really there this year. His upcoming schedule isn't ideal. I don't think he's a sell high necessarily. I know he's, he had a touchdown or two this past week and then 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. So the yardage totals aren't right there right now, but I'm okay holding on to Stefan Diggs. He's a guy that you got to trust the target share. And even though the yardage totals aren't high, like, he's getting valuable targets. He's going to get some deep targets. He's going to get targets inside the red zone. So I'm not really willing to sell Stefan Diggs high. The only way I would sell him high is if you can get up a tier using Stefan Diggs in a trade. So if you can get up to a Devontae Adams or, a Cooper Kupp or someone like that, then I'm okay selling Stefan Diggs. But there's not really many receivers I would take over Stefan Diggs rest of the season. And I just named 2 of them. And like Deebo Samuel might have been another one that you could make the argument that you take over Stefan Diggs, but I would rather have Diggs, and I would rather have Diggs than a lot of guys. Again, if you want to sell Stefan Diggs for a guy like Justin Jefferson, I suppose if you want to make a lateral move like that, that's probably fine. But yeah, Diggs to me is a top 5, top 8 wide receiver rest of the season. So I'm not really looking to sell him. Hit the like for our boy Bush. Yeah, please hit the like button if you haven't already done so. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button as well. I'm probably going to go for about 45 minutes total because I got to, do some things today. But yeah, I'll probably sign off here around, 12 o'clock or whatever. I agree with you on Gronk. Only thing that worries me is that he has so many injuries, and that one game he left early stuck on my brain. Yeah, that's the thing with Gronkowski, is that he is going to be dealing with injuries because he is an older player, and he's kind of been a guy that's dealt with injuries his entire career. But as long as he's on the field, man, if we know we got 100% Rob Gronkowski each and every week, I'm going to be hard pressed to not rank this guy as a top 3, top 5 tight end, because that is the usage he's seeing, and that's really all I can say about it. But yeah, Gronkowski definitely looked great. And as a Bucs fan, I was a little nervous. I don't know if Brock is in here right now because I know he's a Colts fan, but I'm glad we won that game. Shout out to fucking Angry Lenny just running over their entire team. Are you worried about Saquon? I'm not sure he can bounce back again this season, but he is following the pattern from the first 3 weeks where he struggles first 2, goes off the third. So what I will say, and you're talking about his pattern where he struggles the first 2 weeks, what I would say is struggles is him getting ramped up. And the nice thing about what Saquon Barkley did is that he got back to his workload of about 88% of the snaps last week, 18 of 22 running back opportunities, 71% of routes. So the fact that he was back to his full workload, because that's his full workload, he got everything that you wanted out of him as far as the usage out of his backfield. He just didn't have a good game. This Giants offense doesn't look very good, but like, what else is new? That's kind of been the story for Saquon's entire career. They need a fucking quarterback. They need a better offensive line. They need better play calling. They need a lot of things. So am I worried about Saquon this season? Not really, because he's getting the usage. He's going to have to do a lot on his own, unfortunately. But that's kind of what he's been doing for the most part in his career. Hopefully he's able to feel 100% healthy and be able to get back to full-on Saquon. But from a dynasty perspective, again, I'm not worried about him, because whether they re-sign him or not, he's going to get paid somewhere. And honestly, anywhere he goes is going to be better than the Giants. And anywhere he goes, even if he stays with New York, it can't get much worse than it's been, because I don't know. If any of you guys are Giants fans, let me know. But it seems pretty rock bottom for you guys right now. To me, I don't think you have your answer at quarterback. I don't think you have your answer at head coach. I don't think you have your answer in the front office. It sounds like Dave Gettleman's already going to be fired coming off of this season or whatever. They just need kind of like a fresh new regime change in there, and that's not really good news for Saquon's status with the team long term. But again, he was a second overall pick. I'm sure somebody will pay him in free agency if the Giants don't re-sign him. Curtis says played 2 games this season. Okay, yeah. So he played 2 games. I'm sure he was probably limited to some degree in all of them because he was dealing with injuries. This is our last week before the bye. Who can I realistically get for Mike Williams and CEH? Looking for a wide receiver upgrade. If you can sell Mike Williams and CEH for one of the Tampa Bay Bucs receivers, Godwin or Evans, I think that would probably be a solid move. If you can sell them for, let me think here. I'm going to go to my rest of season rankings so I can give you a better idea of people in that range. Yeah, anybody that's going to be someone that is a consistent back-end wide receiver 1. If you could sell those guys for DeAndre Hopkins, I would definitely be going to try and do something like that. If you could sell those guys for Keenan Allen, for Deontay Johnson, might be a little bit of a stretch. Maybe you want to hold on to your side of things, but CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase might be a good guy to go after and target right now because his value might be a little bit suppressed. So if you could try and get Jamar Chase or DK Metcalf or Mike Evans or Keenan Allen or Chris Godwin or somebody in that range for that package right there, I think that's a good move. Hey, bro, if you had to choose one flex moving forward for your team, who would it be? Fournette, Mike Evans, or DK? Obviously, your team is very good or it's a very shallow league. Again, that is all going to be matchup based. I can't say, every single week for the rest of the season, you're going to flex Mike Evans. Like it's going to be matchup based. I would say off the top of my head, DK is the guy I have ranked highest out of those guys. But it's going to depend week in and week out. If you got a great rushing matchup for Leonard Fournette, then maybe I go with Leonard Fournette there. If you have a great passing matchup for Mike Evans, then maybe I go with Mike Evans there. If the Seahawks, like this week, if I had to make that decision, unfortunately, I would have sat Leonard Fournette for a guy like DK Metcalf. But you kind of just have to make that decision week in and week out. They're all great options. I'm sure they're all going to produce pretty decently. It's just a matter of, picking the guy who has the blow up game that week because they're all, capable of doing that. I hate fantasy, man. I just traded JT for Cook and CD because AJ Brown went down in my playoff start week 14. JT bye, but thank God Madison was in that deal as well. Yeah, as long as you got Madison in that deal, I think you're probably okay. But yeah, I also hate fantasy sometimes. What's your thoughts on Miles Sanders? I played him at RB2 over Dylan this week, but did he get hurt in the beginning of the second half? Yeah, it looks like he re-aggravated his ankle injury, and they did tape him up basically. I'm not sure if he ever got a carry or a target or anything after that, but he was back on the sideline and on the field. So we'll have to see with Miles Sanders going forward. Like I said, they do have a bye in week 14, I believe. So if he misses this game this coming week, week 13, he'll have a bye week in week 14 to recover. And then in week 15 for the first week of the playoffs, should be back for then. But yeah, Miles Sanders, again, I don't really know what else I want to talk about with Miles Sanders. He's kind of just been a string of unfortunate, injuries as of the last 2 years, really. Good job. That's not a bad trade, man. Great job to get Madison. Yeah, I agree. Man, what happened to Brady and Kittle? Oof, yeah. Brady, honestly, I doubt another game like that happens for Leonard Fournette again, where he just siphons all of the rushing or the touchdown volume, because typically the Bucs are one of the most pass-heavy teams in the red zone, and Leonard Fournette just happened to go off this week. So you can't really be mad at Tom Brady for that one. They moved the ball. They got to the red zone 6 times in this game. They just couldn't score through the passing game, right? The only time Brady threw I think he only had 1 passing touchdown in this game, and it was to Leonard Fournette. So they were just utilizing Fournette. I mean, you can't be really mad at it. I would say there's an alternate universe. There was a play where Brady tried to throw an in-cutting slant route to Mike Evans. Darius Leonard got his hand on it, and it was, labeled no pass interference because he tipped it or whatever. But if Mike Evans catches that ball, then Brady has a bit better of a stat line. It was just a little unfortunate that for us Tom Brady owners, and I do have Tom Brady as well, that Leonard Fournette was the guy that scored all the touchdowns in this one. Kittle, again, I'm not really concerned. I'll look at his usage real quick right now, but I don't think anything was too concerning about what happened. Yeah, they honestly just didn't run a whole lot of routes and passing plays. They ran 28 passing plays. They pounded Elijah Mitchell and rode Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel too in the running game pretty much the entire game. They didn't really need to pass the ball a whole lot, and that's gonna be a thing, right? With George Kittle, a lot of people that weren't high on Brandon Ayuk as well, that was their concern, was that they were going to run the ball at will, and they're so good at running the ball that why pass, right? It's way less risky to run the ball, and they're so good at it that it kind of makes sense to do it. So only 28 routes for the entire team. Kittle ran 24 of them, so I'm not concerned whatsoever. Just didn't get the targets, wasn't involved heavily, but I'm not concerned whatsoever with him. Do you think Swift is a must start this week? I have Patterson, Barkley, and Madison. It's all going to depend on if Swift is playing. I would say monitor the practice reports with Deandre Swift. If he's, a limited participant all week and questionable going into the game and ends up playing, then yeah, I'm still going to start Deandre Swift. But if I was the Detroit Lions, maybe I sit him out for a week. No reason to risk your star running back when you're not going to win anything this year. So it's all going to depend on Swift's status, but if he plays and he's 100%, or at least, playing to the point that we expect him to get his full workload, then I'm okay starting him over the guys that you have listed there. But if you have to start Patterson or Madison or Barkley over him, I don't care. And if Swift is out, then obviously that's an easy decision. Chase, Chubb, Pitts, and Najee. LOL, I really don't know what to say. Yeah, Pitts, man. Pitts is fucking killing me right now. I don't know what to do with Kyle Pitts. I have him on my team, and when I traded for him, he had 2 straight games, obviously, of just monster production, and he looked like he was going to be a top 3 tight end the rest of the season. But Matt Ryan doesn't look great. The Falcons' offense outside of Cordero Patterson doesn't look great. Yeah, I need to see some things with Kyle Pitts. Hopefully, defenses start honing in on Cordero Patterson, and they let Pitts run free a little bit, because Patterson's the one killing him for the most part. Yes, hit the like. What do you think about Jamar Chase? I think he'll be just fine. I'm not worried about Jamar Chase whatsoever. He's never going to be a guy that gets 14 targets a game or 13 targets a game. He's always going to be a big play threat, and that's going to come with some inconsistencies, especially when T. Higgins gets the big play in this game and not Jamar Chase. But yeah, he's still a top 10 receiver for me, top 8 receiver for me rest of the season. I have no concerns with Jamar Chase, and I'd be trading for him if you guys still have your trade deadlines going right now. Okay, so I left off on Miguel. Looks like Rock says, do you think the constant influx of talented wide receivers that break out in year 1 or 2 will only bolster the success of robust RB in redraft going forward? So I'm guessing what you're saying is going running back early just the meta play right now because of all these mid-round wide receivers like we saw this year with guys like Deebo Samuel and a lot of the guys that we saw going even ahead of Deebo Samuel, like you guys were getting Cooper Kupps and Chris Godwin's in rounds 4 and rounds 5 in some cases. So yeah, I do think that's going to be the case, Rock. And we have another talented wide receiver class coming in to the NFL this year in 2022 with only a few talented running backs coming into this class. So yeah, I think it's kind of always been like that, but I feel like it's really concentrated at this point to the point that you got 3 or 4 elite running backs. 5 to 10 great running backs, a couple breakout candidates, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's really all you're looking at the running back position. Whereas at wide receiver, you got, 10 elite wide receivers, you got 15 pretty solid wide receivers, you got 10 breakout candidate wide receivers. So you got, a 15 to 18 ratio to, a 30 ratio to the wide receiver. So yeah, I do think that going running back early is going to continue to be very popular strategy for a lot of people. We kind of talked about throughout the offseason that we're picking the best players on the board, regardless of position. And for us, that meant, because we thought, people were taking it a little too far. Some people were taking, Joe Mixon, who's obviously having a great year. And I was kind of wrong on Joe Mixon, but if we thought people were taking Joe Mixon too high, right? People were taking him over guys like Davante Adams and Stefan Diggs, who median range of outcomes, high and low end, we did think had better projections than a guy like Joe Mixon. So that's kind of our thought process behind it, is that we're going to take the best players regardless of position. But yeah, robust RB, especially in the early rounds, is going to be very popular going forward. Mckissick versus Locket. Give me Tyler Locket, 100%. I think Tyler Locket is in for a huge game this week, unfortunately. And well, unfortunately for me, because I have in my home league right now, I'm up, I think, 32 points. I'm up 80 to like 48. So I didn't have the greatest week either, but I have Antonio Gibson left to play, and he has Curtis Samuel, Tyler Lockett, and Alex Collins left to play. So I think I should be okay. I'm up 32 with a bunch of guys, that are not that great. Plus I have Gibson playing as well. So I should be able to do it as long as Gibson can get me 10 to 15 points. I should be okay. But Lockett does scare me, because Lockett is capable of putting up 30, 40 point games. And we've seen it in the past, but I'm thinking if Lockett's going to have a huge game, it could be in this week. He could have like a 200 or 20 point game or something like that. Do you think Nwangu, so the kick returner from the Vikings, is worth taking a shot on, being Cook might be gone? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to involve him much on offense. And honestly, I think they still have Abdullah too, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check right now. So they did use Nwangu as the primary, backup behind Alexander Madison. But if Abdullah is still on the roster, I don't know if he's on IR or something like that. I honestly just am not tracking Amir Abdullah as of late, but I think he's worth a speculative ad if you have no other, options to pick up on the waiver wire. But I'd probably guess that a lot of you guys have guys like Khalil Herbert and Darrell Williams sitting on your waiver wires right now. And I would much rather roster somebody like that, who has a chance to be, because we know those guys' roles, right? We know if Montgomery goes down again, it's Khalil Herbert season. We know if, Clyde goes down again, it's Darrell Williams season. So if those guys are on your waiver wire, I would definitely rather roster them than a guy like Nwangu, who looks good as a, special teamer, but I'm not expecting him to make a huge impact on offense as long as Madison's there. So I'm in a vampire league and I won. So I have to choose one of those three guys for my opponent. Isn't that called a guillotine league? I've never played in one, but they do sound kind of interesting. So I have to choose one of those three from my opponent. Okay. So you are the one who asked. Okay. So you asked about Fournette, Mike Evans, or DK Metcalf. Do you have to make this decision now? Because you said looking to see who the best value is from them. So if you don't have to make this decision now, if the Seahawks have a huge game this week, I would pick Metcalf. That's who I would probably go with, because I think he is I think I'd probably pick Metcalf regardless. But if the Seahawks have another down game in this one, that'll make me a little bit more nervous about Metcalf. But I'd probably just go with DK Metcalf if you have to make the decision right now. But if you have to wait until after this week is over, then it's going to be probably a very hard decision. If Metcalf has a down game, it's going to be a tough decision between Evans and Fournette and Metcalf, because the Bucs do have, a somewhat challenging schedule down the stretch, especially against the run. So it would probably be between Evans and Metcalf for me, but I think I'd still go Metcalf for the most part, unless they just completely fold on offense tonight. Flip Javonte for Akers, ETN, and a late first. That's a really good return for Javonte Williams. Would be trading with another contender who could use Javonte against me. So you're a contender also, and you want to trade him away for Akers, ETN, and a late first. I think that's worthwhile. I love Javonte Williams, but Cam Akers looks to be on track to at least be, pretty serviceable once he comes back. ETN, again, he should be okay once he comes back from injury too. You got two lottery ticket, former high draft pick running backs that are, very talented players in their own right. And you're getting a late first on top of it. I'm okay making that move. You said you're a contender, I'm guessing, as well, and the other contender wants to use Javonte against you, which kind of sucks. But It's all about weighing the value of the trade for me. So even though you're trading away a good running back to a contending team, I think you're getting the better value in the trade. So I'm still willing to make the Akers ETN in a late first move. Hopefully it doesn't sap your chances of winning the championship this year, but that's something you kind of have to weigh as a dynasty player. Cause I've been in that situation too, where somebody wants a contending piece from me and they're willing to give up like, a young piece, maybe that's injured or something like that. And you want to acquire the value of the trade, which I would say is on the Akers side, but at the same time, you also want to win too. And you don't want to sacrifice value for winning a championship because that's always a stupid decision. I know we're always focused on value in Dynasty, but you also want to win as well. So if you need Javonte to win, I'm okay holding on to him. But if you're okay to potentially win without him, I think the Akers ETN side's the better deal. I'm up by 2. I have Gibson still to play. My opponent is playing Russ. It's half PPR. Do you think I got a chance, or is this an L? I would say your opponent is probably favored right now. I'd say they have like a 65-70% chance of winning, but you do have a chance to win this one because Russ has been a little inconsistent as of late. And it looks like Gibson is playing a lot better right now. So you have a chance, but I would say your opponent's probably favored. Okay, so Bob says, can New England DST continue to produce with the tougher schedule ahead? Honestly, the way that they're playing, I think they can. They're probably, I don't play in any leagues with defenses anymore. So I have no idea if they're the defense 1 or the defense 10, but I know they have been playing well because their defense is obviously very highly rated when I do DFS research. They're like one of the top 5 defenses in the league. And in terms of weighted DVOA, which is accounts for how they're playing right now in most recent games, they're the best defense in the league right now. So I think they can continue to produce regardless of the schedule that they're playing because they played a pretty, fundamentally sound Titans offense, even though they were out without a lot of their weapons, and they just made them look like a B team. So I think they're going to be pretty good going forward. Jefferson and Claypool were so cheap as rookies. Yeah, they were absolutely. I've got AJ Dillon, James Robinson, Zeke, Pollard. Do I try and trade the Cowboys running backs or for Swift or an RB1 who busted? Or do I just stick it out with the Cowboys running backs? If you can get Swift for the Cowboys running backs in a dynasty league, absolutely go get Swift. I think that's a great. Oh, actually, sorry, your Abby looked similar to Amal's Abby. So I'm guessing this is a redraft league. Then I've got AJ Dillon, James Robinson, Zeke Elliott. Honestly, I would probably stick it out with the Cowboys running backs in a redraft league because if they shut Zeke down for any period of time, then you know what you have with Tony Pollard. And if Zeke is on the field being Zeke, then you know what you have in Zeke Elliott too. And Zeke Elliott fully healthy is, a touch better than Deandre Swift for me as far as fantasy production. And same goes for Pollard if Zeke is out. I think they're probably pretty similar in terms of value. Plus you also have AJ Dillon and James Robinson as well. So I would probably just roll with what you got there, Joseph. News on Dalvin. Do we have news officially? I didn't actually see it. So if we do have official news on his MRI or whatever, then I would like to know that. I'm actually looking at Twitter right now. Statement from Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. Doesn't look like we have official news on Dalvin Cook right now. But like I said at the beginning of the video, it looks like Dalvin Cook is going to be out for a couple weeks, if not, maybe the rest of the season, because he has a history of these torn labrums and shoulder separations and things of that nature. So it could be a little bit more serious than a simple shoulder separation because this is a guy that has dealt with these in the past. And according to Ian Rappaport, he said he's been playing through one in his other shoulder, not the one that he hurt yesterday. So Figs, he might have a torn labrum, SMH. Yeah. Waddle also super cheap this year. Yeah. Jalen Waddle's been great. I think he's been really underrated as a fantasy asset this year. And I think dynasty community is a little hesitant on Jalen Waddle because he doesn't have a great analytics profile because he is an older prospect. He was like 23. And he also played for a very high-powered offensive school in Alabama. Wasn't able to produce a whole lot until his final year at Alabama. So people are a little hesitant on Jalen Waddle, but everything you've needed to see from him in his rookie season, you've seen. Guy's got to be on pace for easily over 1,000 yards right now. So definitely love to see that. Should I be starting Elijah Mitchell if Dalvin is injured rest of the season? Yeah. If you don't have Alexander Madison, yeah. If you have Alexander Madison, then I would probably rather start Madison than Elijah Mitchell. But that'd be a really close conversation. Javonte Williams or Tony Pollard? Give me Javonte Williams rest of the season there. Unless they shut Zeke down. If they shut Zeke down, I'll take Tony Pollard. But I think Zeke is probably going to maybe miss a game. Maybe they shut him down for 1 week. Maybe he's fine. And that's probably what I'm expecting because Zeke has not been a guy traditionally that has been very prone to injury, nor has he played or has he been sat when he has injuries? He usually plays through stuff. So I'd probably still go with Javonte there. Of course, he's an RB1 Figs. Yeah, he is an RB1, by the way. Abdullah is a Panther. Oh, yeah, I'm actually baked. Never mind. Abdullah is in Carolina. I totally forgot about that. There's another guy in that backfield that I'm forgetting then. Fair trade for sure. Practically taking over Hubbard's backup job. Just traded Hilliard for Alexander Madison. Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal trade. Jesus. With the workload on Gaskin, is he worth starting rest of season? 14-man standard league. In a 14-man league, yeah, he's definitely worth starting. I think he's still worth starting in a 12-man league. The only thing I would say about Gaskin is, and I'll pull this up actually right now, we do have some usage from that game where Gaskin clearly was the guy that produced the most from a fantasy perspective, but he ran 17 of 34 routes, so only about 50%. They did use Salvin Ahmed and Patrick Laird sparingly. He did play only about half the snaps too, 37 of 74 snaps. They mixed in Phillip Lindsay right away and gave him 12 carries. So again, it's starting to get a little sketchy with Myles Gaskin. We do have Malcolm Brown officially eligible to be activated off IR sometime soon as well. Maybe that's why they picked up Lindsay, because he's not ready to be coming off of IR yet. But I think either way, in a 14-man league, he's still a guy that is an every week, RB2 flex play in a 14-man league. But I'm not excited about Myles Gaskin going forward. Is Elijah Mitchell top 25 running back rest of the season? Elijah Mitchell's probably a top 15 running back rest of the season, to be honest, the way that he's playing and the way that they're using him. The guy literally had like 30 plus opportunities this week. So he's definitely more than a top 25 running back. He's got to be inside the top 15 to 20 consideration for sure. I would rather have right now, if I'll just go to my rest of season rankings, who I have ranked in that range. So I have currently at RB 13, I have Aaron Jones, who came back this week and didn't get a whole lot of work, but I have Leonard Fournette at 14. I have Elijah Mitchell at 19 right now because I haven't updated these in like 2 weeks, but I would rather have Elijah Mitchell than James Conner. I would rather have Elijah Mitchell than James Robinson, than Daryl Henderson, than Antonio Gibson, than Michael Carter, of course, now that he's out for a couple of weeks. I would rather have him than Cordarrelle Patterson as well. Actually, I don't know, man. Cordarrelle Patterson's like, he's so weird to rank because he's a running back and a wide receiver. So I have a hard time ranking him among running backs, but I have an easier time ranking among wide receivers. But it's super weird. Between Elijah Mitchell and Cordarrelle Patterson, you guys can, let me know who you guys would prefer. I think I'd prefer Elijah Mitchell slightly, but Patterson to me would be right behind him in that RB16 type of range, with a guy like James Robinson, Daryl Henderson kind of fitting in behind that. I'm a little worried about the Rams offense and Daryl Henderson specifically, because Daryl Henderson was a guy that needed everything to go right for him to be very fair, fantasy relevant, because he's not that good of a player. Like I know, he's got his moments and stuff, but he's just not that good. So with Matthew Stafford playing through all these injuries and not playing the greatest in the world, I'm not excited about Daryl Henderson rest of the season as anything more than a mid RB2. What do I do with Chase Edmonds? I guess you just continue to hold him. I don't know when he's expected to be coming back, but I think you're probably going to get another week or two at least of James Conner being the workhorse role in that backfield. They said 4 to 6 weeks, I believe, initially when he got injured, which would put him, about week 13, week 14 as the first time that he can come back. But this is a playoff team that currently has a bye right now and is the 1 seed in the NFC. So I doubt that they're going to rush back Chase Edmonds. I'd imagine they're going to be patient with him. So week 14, week 15, week 16 is probably about the time that you can expect Chase Edmonds to come back. I have Lamar, Joe Mixon, Dalvin, Debo, Keenan, Tyreek, and Kelsey with Elijah Mitchell and Bateman off the bench. I'm 7-5. You think without Dalvin, I'm fine? Yeah, I think you're fine. Yeah. So I guess you're just going to be starting Elijah Mitchell over Dalvin Cook. I think you're just fine with that lineup. You have, a stud quarterback, stud, tight end. You have some difference making players at other positions. Hopefully Deebo Samuel, for your sake, is okay as well. That kind of sucks that you have Dalvin and Deebo, who both got injured in that game, but you should be okay. I'm worried about Devontae Smith. Hurts stinks. He's not the greatest passer in the world. I wouldn't say he stinks. He definitely had a shitty game yesterday, though. So that was definitely not what you wanted to see. I wouldn't be worried about Devontae Smith, though. Like, again, he's going to have down games sometimes just because Jalen Hurts isn't the greatest passer in the world, but I'm not overly concerned. And part of the reason Devontae Smith did have a down game, as I kind of talked about all week, is because James Bradbury was going to shadow him in coverage. And the Giants haven't been the greatest against wide receivers in general this year, but James Bradbury's still a good corner. And if he's in shadow coverage, I'm going to be a little nervous about the guy that he's shadow covering. And Devontae Smith, as a rookie wide receiver against a physical corner like James Bradbury, of course, a smaller wide receiver, Devontae Smith as well. I didn't expect him to do a whole lot in that matchup. James Conner worth trading for with Edmonds coming back soon? Probably not. I would say if you have James Conner, just continue to use him. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to trade for James Conner because I think Chase Edmonds will be back before the end of the season. I don't think they're going to have James Conner the entire fantasy playoffs as a workhorse running back. I think Chase Edmonds will be back before then. So I would say probably don't trade for him. If anything, I might trade him away to somebody who needs him to win games before the end of the season. Got F-efford. I don't even know what that means. Different. Pittman Jr. and offered. Okay, there we go. I'm good. Got offered Pittman Jr. and Najee for Devontae Adams and Antonio Brown. I'd be getting Najee. I lost Derrick Henry. My other running backs are Saquon and Javonte. My wide receivers are Adams, Mike Williams, and Renfro. Okay, so Najee versus Devontae Adams. That's a pretty close conversation. The one thing I will say, like Najee Harris, the shitty thing about him is that Ben is just so fucking bad. Like, I don't know what else to say about Ben Roethlisberger. This guy sucks, man. He's so bad. So he's going to hold back that offense in general, and Najee Harris as a result of that. I would say that I do tend to side with the Najee side, especially given your running back situation. So that is probably where I would go. But I don't really want to trade away Antonio Brown, man. I really like Antonio Brown right now. I think he's going to be phenomenal once he comes back. So I probably... If you can shave Antonio Brown off that deal and do that just for Devontae, or maybe add in, like, I would rather trade away Renfro rather than Antonio Brown right now. Like, I know Renfro's playing really well, but I think Antonio Brown's going to be just much better down the stretch than what Renfro can provide you. So I would rather, if you do Devontae Adams and Renfro for Pittman and Najee, I would rather do that, or just, toss in some other wide receiver or running back that's on your bench. I'd rather do that, but I think the Pittman and Najee side is definitely good. Is Burrow worth holding, or should I try trades for someone like Herbert? It's up to you. I think, like, it depends what you have to give up for Herbert, but I would rather have Herbert than Burrow rest of season if that's what you're asking. But I don't really think it's a huge upgrade. So if you have to go, Burrow and like a Pittman or someone like somebody like relevant and valuable, then I'm probably just going to stick with Burrow. Who would you rather have, Chubb or Hunt? I would rather have Chubb, but again, with those two guys, you got to temper your expectations a little bit because they are splitting workloads, and we can't trust them 100% of the time. They're going to have, their games here and there. Making a waiver claim for Madison. Do I drop Ingram or Stevenson? I would probably drop Stevenson if I'm being honest, because we don't really know what Kamara's injury concern is going forward. So I would rather roster Ingram because I think he has more upside than Stevenson. And Stevenson is still, like, he's clearly in a committee with Damian Harris and with Brandon Bolden. And even if Damian Harris were to go down, Ramondre Stevenson to me is just less valuable than Alexander Madison. So I'd rather have Alexander Madison with Dalvin Cook probably being out. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But I mean, it's up to you. If we see Alvin Kamara practicing tomorrow or something, or we hear that he's going to come back, then I would rather drop Ingram. Would you trade CEH for Thielen? I would rather have Thielen than CEH. So what's the deal with McCaffrey? I think McCaffrey is probably going to get a rest week this week on their bye week, and he should be back week 14, hopefully. I don't know. Maybe it's a more serious injury than that, but it didn't sound too concerning based on what Matt Rule said about it. It said he just kind of didn't come back into the game. They were getting destroyed too. So it also doesn't, if it was a even game or a close game, then maybe they bring him back for that one. Maybe it was just a matter of being cautious because they were already losing. What's up, Ron? What's your favorite team? You can't tell right now with all the jerseys behind me. You got the Brady jersey over my shoulder there. I got Rondé Barber, Mike Evans, Winfield Jr. and the Bucks signed football by Devin White behind me. I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan. Jalen Waddle for Rob Gronkowski. I have CD and Keenan with Conklin as my tight end. It's a little sketchy trading for Gronk just because he does have the injury history, and Jalen Waddle is playing really well right now. I'm okay making that trade though. I think with your wide receivers that you have plus Conklin as your tight end, like that is really rough at the tight end position. So I'm actually okay making that move for Gronkowski. Started Goddard over Gronk this week and Elijah Moore over Higgins. Yeah, that hurts. That definitely hurts. I wouldn't have started Goddard over Gronk if you had asked me that question. Concern over Kyle Pitts. Seems the Pats put the blueprint out. Honestly, I this Falcons offense just anemic. I don't even know if they're like stopping Kyle Pitts as much as like Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts just can't get anything going, and the offense is just not moving unless Cordell Patterson's making big plays. So I am concerned over Kyle Pitts as a Kyle Pitts owner and manager and in my home league. I'm hoping he can get back on track, but this was an easy matchup. He should have done a lot better than he did. Can I drop Goddard and just use Gronk rest of the season? I mean, it depends who you're dropping him for. I don't mind just holding Goddard if you have nobody to pick up, but if you got a backup running back like Jamal Williams or Alexander Madison on the waiver wire, then yeah, I would absolutely drop Goddard, and use Gronk rest of the season. So I've been on here for 49 minutes. It's 12 p.m. So I'm going to head out of here, guys. We will be live before the Monday Night Football game tonight. So if you have any more questions, just tune into that. Me and Danny will both be on here. I'll just answer this last one from Nate. Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger, days of being quality quarterbacks are long gone. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Matt Ryan maybe still have something left in the tank, but Ben Roethlisberger, not excited about him going forward. And Robert said, okay, I'll just answer a couple more and then I'll head out of here. Melvin Gordon plus Claypool can get me what type of wide receiver? If you can afford to wait on a guy like AJ, actually, no, that's probably a stupid trade. Never mind. I would say probably go after a guy like Pittman, maybe DJ Moore, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Brown, I think would be a perfect guy to go after as well. Somebody in that range is probably who I'd go after, Robert. I have Madison on waivers and I'm the Cook owner. So yeah, drop Goddard for Madison, 100%. Do I trade AJ Dillon or keep him? I would probably just keep him because I don't think you're going to get a whole lot for him now that Aaron Jones is back. So peace out, guys.